Imagine this. It's a normal working day until suddenly your systems go down and you get a message. You are hacked. Panic sets in. Decision needs to be made faster. But where do we even really start? Our next guest is the one who steps in at this point, Lisa the Wilde. Lisa is an incident responder and she helps organizations face their worst cyber nightmare. She steps into the room where everything unfolds. She helps teams go through chaos. She helps control damage and recover in immense pressure. So the question for today is, if you are hacked, what do you do next? Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Welcome to Cyber People Talks.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you for doing this for us. So, Lisa, you've helped so many organizations, come out of such chaos. What initially led you to this topic of incident response?
It actually was more an accident. I was working on security operations, so monitoring and detection, finding who was in the network of customers. When suddenly the computer emergency response team, which is the team who helps hacked organizations, became really busy with organizations that were not being monitored. And they needed some extra employees. So they asked me if I could step in. And that's where it actually all started.
How interesting. So did you have to jump into a case directly, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, actually I jumped into a case directly. I directly went to Germany. So it was not even a case in the Netherlands, and I was away for 5 weeks. So how that happens is I was called. Within a few hours I stepped into the car. The rest of the team was already on location. In between, I brought my cat to my parents because I was not prepared for this. Filled my suitcase and went there. I didn't even have enough clothes with me to stay there that long. But luckily there are washing machines in the hotels. And from then on, I kind of became addicted to it. I loved it so much. That eventually I moved from the Security Operations Center to the Computer Emergency Response Team.
So what did you like about it so much?
Well, I love to work under pressure, and in those cases there is lots of pressure, of course. Also, the appreciation that you get is really, really high. You see results directly of what you're doing. So that's something that I really, really like. But of course, there is also a downside. The company is hacked and it's a really, really bad situation. You don't want to be in that situation. The stress levels are really high. So mostly say I've got like a love-hate relationship with incident response and crisis management.
How nice. Let's step back a little. Let's talk about what are the common signs of getting hacked? When does an organization get to know about it?
So there are different kinds of hacks, of course. So, you started your introduction with like the black screen and you're hacked. Many of the organizations notice the hack when it's already too late, when the impact is already there. So the files are encrypted, meaning that you cannot open your files anymore, or indeed there is a screen that's black, or money has been withdrawn from your bank account. So they kind of see it in business. So they cannot work anymore, or they see it in their financial transactions. That's always, I think it's always then the case that you're too late. Some organizations are able to see it earlier. So they have, for example, security monitoring, and then the Security Operations Center will see activity in the network earlier, and then they, of course, can also contain it earlier.
So because you're an incident responder, do you have like within incident responding, a specialization? Or can you go ahead and do any kind of recovery if a company is hacked?
No, so I'm not an expert in all topics. I'm, for example, not doing forensic investigation. That's what the real techies do. They're really, really good in finding out what happened, when it happened. So they're actually having some pieces of the puzzle and try to make it together such that they can tell how did the criminals get in, what activities they take into the environment, what data was accessed. So that's not something I'm not doing. Also, recovery. I'm able to make a recovery plan for the company, but I'm not like hands-on performing the recovery for the organizations. Okay. I do coordination, communicating with, for example, the board or the IT provider on what needs to be done. I'm steering the incident response team who's working on the case. I also used to do negotiations, but I'm not doing that anymore because it costs me too much stress. You're actually communicating with criminals, and the customer really relies on you. And when the criminals are not answering for 2, 3, 4 days, you can imagine the stress goes up. That wasn't for me. So I focused mostly on coordination.
You want to give an example of this? Maybe this is very interesting that you had a communication with a criminal, and what had happened and what was he asking and how did you solve it in the end?
So first of all, it's important to mention that it's always necessary to ask professionals to contact with criminals, because you don't want to mess things up. You don't want to make the impact bigger. And then the first question that organizations have is, are we even going to contact the cyber criminals or not? So in some cases it's not needed, or you don't want it, or you know already that they won't do what they say, so then you're not going to contact the criminals. And then when you contact the criminals, you will ask them about what their demand is. So they will ask money in Bitcoins, and you will ask, for example, about the data that they might have stolen. Can you prove to me that you've stolen data? If there is encryption, so you cannot open the files anymore, you want to know whether they have the decryptor, which is the key to open the files again. So that's something you're going to ask. And then you can also negotiate about the price. And well, sometimes the price goes down a little bit, and sometimes it goes down a lot, depending on the criminal groups. But yeah, there are all kind of factors that, of course, involve that. But this is not really straightforward. This is something that causes a lot of stress within the organization, especially because in some cases they're really depending on the criminals. If you don't have backups, for example, the only option might be to pay. And then if the criminals do not respond, that's really, really frustrating. Luckily, in most cases, they do respond pretty quickly.
Okay. So in whatever experience you've had, either organizations have paid the criminal or they have backups.
And I see a trend currently that less organizations are paying, meaning that more organizations have proper backups, but also that companies are not paying that much anymore for data theft. But of course, this is biased because I only see a small part of what's happening.
So what happens? First of all, you mentioned that, a couple of things go wrong and you can sense that these are the signs that an organization is hacked. When an organization is hacked, what are the steps? What exactly 3 to 4 things an organization should do to be able to contain the damage?
So when you're talking about incident response, containment is actually one of the first steps, meaning make sure that the criminals don't have access anymore to the environment. So mostly I compare it to burglary in a house. So you want to make sure that the criminals is out, but also cannot get in anymore. So the first step is containment, is actually isolation. And that means disconnecting the network or blocking accounts, making sure that no one can access your IT environment anymore from the outside, meaning the attackers outside. But also, you don't want systems to infect each other. Or if there is another way that the criminal is still in the environment, you want to make sure that he cannot do any further action. So the first thing is stop the attack. And yeah, most organizations then, depending on the size of the attack, what's going on, either block accounts or isolate systems or the network. Then the next step is that you need to have help. Most organizations cannot recover from incidents purely by themselves. Some have their own internal computer emergency response team, but you need to know who's going to help you. It can be an external party. It can also be some colleagues of you who are going to help. So that's actually activating your crisis team or your incident response team, depending on, again, the size of the case. So assuming it's ransomware, then your crisis team will be activated because all systems are down.
And talking from hackers' perspective, so do they study an organization before, or they're just randomly, shooting at a couple of organizations and wherever they have the best bet and, that happens? How does that work from...
Yeah, both actually. Also, it's funny because you say hackers, and that's the term that's being broadly used. I refer to them as cyber criminals.
Okay.
Because they're actually criminals, and hackers sound so sweet in a way.
Flashy.
Yeah, but they're not like the real criminals. Sure. And so that's why I refer to it as criminals. There are targeted attacks. So then they decide, I'm going to attack this organization and I want to achieve this goal. And there are also attacks going on that are untargeted, and they actually try to get like the easiest victim, so to say. So for example, they are sending hundreds of thousands phishing emails to all email addresses, hoping that one will click and fill in the credentials and then continue and put effort in that company. But then it was kind of randomly selected, this company. For most organizations, untargeted attacks are where they're vulnerable for, or what they should worry about. But of course, there are also organizations like governmental organizations or organizations with really important intellectual property, or companies that have like a social role, for example, like energy sector.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting, of course. If you can turn down those organizations, then it will have impact on the whole society.
Yeah.
But for most organizations, it's the untargeted attacks that they should be worried about.
Right. So once the cyber criminal hits in, what is the environment like in a company? Of course, it's stressful, but in the boardroom, the reputation of the company, the people who are working in the company, or people's data that has been leaked, overall, what is the environment like?
Honestly, I must say it really differs per company. So sometimes I'm working on cases where the board is not even there, or where I only have communication with the IT service provider. And I also have cases where everyone is involved and everyone is working their ass off. I help companies that are only working on the case from 9 to 5, and I also help organizations who work like 24 hours a day. So it really differs a lot, and of course also depends on the impact that has been made. So for example, if an organization is hit by ransomware and all systems are down, the pressure is even higher. But for example, if money has been transferred from a bank account to a bank account from cyber criminals, then the bank is being called to try to see if you can get the money back, and then investigation will start. That's mostly a little bit, less under pressure. I would say. So it really depends. But for me, it's actually important that management is involved in incidents as well. It's you maybe know this saying, but it's not an IT party. Security is not an IT party.
Yeah.
It's for the whole company, and the management, like the highest level, is responsible, and not the IT employee or the security officer.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I've spoken to quite a few of CISOs and people in the cybersecurity environment, and yeah, they definitely. I also did a podcast on if you get hacked, who is to blame?
Yeah.
Everyone just catches the neck of a CISO or the cyber team, but I guess it's like a full organization's responsibility overall.
Yeah, and for me, the answer who's to blame is actually really easy. It's the cyber criminals. Yeah, like they should not touch this company. They're doing illegal things.
Yeah.
And of course, you can always say that the company could have done better. What if? But yeah, it's easy to say that afterwards. It's really difficult, and each story has its own perspective. And I know, especially now, cyber attacks are more described in the media as well. The media has a big influence on it. We all have an opinion about it. But I think it's really easy to have an opinion when you're not involved in the case.
Yeah.
I'm very curious, what would be your opinion if you would have been hacked, or if it was your company?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I hope and I assume that companies are not asking to get hacked like okay, you just pick me.
No.
No one wants it to happen.
Yeah.
And especially because the impact is really big.
Yeah, true. What was a moment when you actually thought that, wow, this is really bad?
Well, there are actually two cases that come into my mind. One was a ransomware attack at a hospital. And that still touches me, and that's because it's really close to people's life. Someone came in at the emergency room, systems were not working. Luckily, this person survived, but that was not because of they could do anything with the systems. That was really because of the employees handled the case really well. They treated this person really well. They found alternative options to make sure what's going on, to have a diagnosis. So that was for me really, that one came really close.
Yeah.
And there was another case where the encryption did not go well. And that also means that decryption could not go well. So there was a key that this organization decided to pay, but the key was not working. Because the initial process from the attackers did not go well. So then you lost a lot of money on that. But also there were only backups available for 30% of the systems, and you could not decrypt them. So that was also really terrible.
Would you, as an incident responder, do something differently here?
In this last case?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, because when talking with this customer, we explained all risks to them. Explained also that it can happen, that it won't work, that of course we can try our best, but we didn't make that software, so we're also not responsible for that. So that's not something that I would do different. What I would do different is more like how to deal with it. So as an incident responder, I'm really willing to make sure that the company continues their operation. I really want to solve everything really well for the customer, make sure that the impact is as low as possible, but it also has an impact on me, of course. So what I would do different is make sure that my own well-being is being handled better by myself. That's not the responsibility of someone else, of course.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just gonna ask you this. Maybe it's a stupid question, but do you think before making a payment to a cyber criminal, we need to check whether the negotiations that we are doing at this point in time with what we give and what we get back is both at par and both equal? Because here the payment was made, but what we got in return, the key was not working. It was 30% of what we had expected. Do you think there was a lack of negotiation happening here?
No, I don't think so. There are many checks that negotiators do. I did not do the negotiation myself, so I don't know. It's a long time ago. I also don't know exactly, of course, but there are many checks that negotiators do to make sure that the risks are limited. And there are many conversations going on with the customer about what's going on. And well, the funny but also maybe strange thing is that the criminals were also actually willing to help to solve the issue because they sold a bad product.
Oh.
You can see it like that. They have a reputation that they want to keep high. So they did put effort in it, but unfortunately you didn't get a refund. But of course, those cases are also really good to evaluate and to see what you can learn from them.
Yeah.
And I think in the past years, negotiation, but also incident response crisis management in cyber really evolved. It got better and better and better, and you learn from every case that you do.
Yeah.
Because, for example, when I started, so my first case in Germany, there was actually no, we were not working with the mental impact. We were only talking about data, about systems, about business processes, about customers, about reporting to the police, about the forensic investigation, but we never talked about what it would do to the people. Do you have any idea what it would do to the people?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, of course, it's very stressful, but I don't know what more. It's a good question.
Of course, it differs from person to person what it will do, but what I've seen, it's really, really impactful. And it's like people do not eat anymore. People are going to use alcohol to make sure that they can sleep during the night, start smoking more, for example. But it also got worse, like 1 out of 7 people who were involved in the incident, so not only like the external incident handlers, but like also from the customer, have such impact from the incident that after a year after the incident, they still would need psychological help to recover from the incident.
But are these people are the ones who are directly impacted? So who are these people? Give me like people working in the organization, or they are the ones within the organization dealing with this problem?
Both. Yeah.
So how would this affect the people working in the organization? For example, HR department or marketing department, for that matter.
Of course, it differs a little bit, but also those people can get scared of what happened. They don't want to use their laptop anymore. They are scared that the infection would go to their home systems as well. But also in those cases, there's mostly data theft, and their passports might have been leaked as well. So that causes a lot of stress also. And it's not only about within the organization, actually, it also goes outside the organization. So if, for example, an organization that delivers to private customers, so just citizens of, for example, the Netherlands, and there is data involved, which you saw in some recent cases of clinical diagnostics or ODIDO, for example, the impact will also be visible at those persons, and those persons are also victims. So not only the company is a victim, but also those persons are a victim.
Yeah.
So the impact is really, really high, or can be really, really high.
Yeah.
to give you an example, when an organization is hacked, some of the organizations decide to call their customers or call their top 10, top 20 customers. And I was sitting at a table with 12 people who just called their customers to tell that they've been hacked, and they got a script on what they could say and what they could not answer, or how to deal with the questions that were being asked. And they just came back to the room to have kind of debrief with me on what was being discussed. And 10 out of 12 were crying.
Really?
Because they were shouted at, or they felt the real impact, and the conversations they had with the customers were really, really difficult. And this is just a small example of what happens with people during these cases. And this is also why I was telling, it's involved, we are getting better at it. Now, incident response parties also think about the mental impact.
Yeah.
So if a company is hacked, would you, what time window would you use for working hours? What time would you start? What time would you end?
If a company is hacked, you
Yeah.
mean?
For recovery, would it be, what would you do?
I don't know.
So most people tend to say, like, we continue to fix it. We want to fix it. We want to make sure that our company is up and running again. But recovery can take 3, 4, 5 weeks, sometimes even longer. And the aftermath will be even way longer. That will be months. So working 16 hours a day, maybe even longer, it's not healthy.
No.
You will make mistakes. Well, if we're working together, we might get into a fight because we're tired and we don't understand each other anymore. So one of the things that's being advised now to organizations is either make sure that you work in shifts or stop at a specific time and continue the next day. Because you cannot continue working all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
It has such a, I mean, you know, when you hear the word hack, it's very flashy. People want to know, people want to gossip. They want to know what's going on and then have their opinion, like you mentioned, without realizing the mental impact that this is actually having on people. I mean, I'm very, very surprised to hear that people, you know, adhere to to these kind of activities by smoking, sleeping, alcohol,
Yeah. Not sleeping.
not sleeping,
Yeah.
not eating. I mean, it's really sad to hear that, you know, cyber criminals are going that far where people are actually changing their whole way of life because of this
Yeah.
small or not so small incident.
Yeah, and well, to give you an example, before I worked in incident response full time, I'm not doing cases full time anymore. But at some points I got so much stress from the cases that I also took some glasses of alcohol to make sure that I would fall asleep. I'm not the only incident responder who would do that. And then I'm not even the company that's hacked. I'm not working in the company that's hacked. So for me, that shows that if you're working in the company, it might be even way worse than that.
Yeah.
And this is also why I have like a love-hate relationship with incident response. The appreciation is really high, but the downside's also really low.
Yeah. And what is the biggest lesson organizations have learned after going through the cyber attack?
Well, it's actually quite funny that some of the organizations said, this really helped us to get better in what we're doing. We're closer to each other. Mm-hmm. Of course, they also say, I wish it wouldn't have happened. But there are many, many lessons learned from cases. And this is also why I think it's really important that organizations who are hacked share what have happened to them and how they resolved it and what they've learned from it. Because then we can help prepare other organizations to make sure that it won't happen to them again. And that's also, I do understand that we all have an opinion when a hack occurs and when it comes in the media that we would say like, oh, but they could have done better. But if we're saying that too many times, new victims won't share that they're hacked or won't share the lessons learned. So that's not what we want. We want to know the lessons learned. And that's about vulnerabilities that have been exploited, which you then can patch. But it's also about, for example, who you should call when you're hacked, or what settings you should make to your security logging such that you can do investigation, sharing lessons about contact with cyber criminals, for example, because if you know that they didn't do what they agreed on with you, you would make sure that no one else makes an agreement with them, of course. Yeah. So there are many lessons learned that can be taken from those cases. Yeah. My biggest lessons learned is really take care of your people. The people are the most valuable asset of your company. Without people, you don't have a company. And we need to talk more about that instead of the technical systems or the data.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that. So happy to hear it. In this era of AI, do you think cyber attack has evolved? Or what's the new way of...
Yeah, I think it already has, and I think it will be even more. So the good thing is with AI, we can also do better detections or improve our preventions. But of course, the criminals can also use it. And a good example is, for example, phishing emails. It's way easier for them to set up good phishing emails. And people will always click on phishing emails. We cannot stop that. Of course, we can try, but there's only one person needed who clicks on it and they have initial access. But then there should, of course, also be technical measures to make sure that they cannot go deeper into the network. But yeah, phishing emails will become way more sophisticated, will look way more real, and people will still click on it.
So according to you, phishing emails stop the chart with the attack ways of attacking?
Well, it is a way.
The most common way?
Well, I see it happening a lot, really a lot. The other one I see happening a lot is vulnerabilities in software or in firewalls, for example. And then organizations need to perform the updates, apply the patches, and there's time between that the vulnerability gets known and that the patches are applied, and that time window is perfect for criminals to start attacking the company. I do believe that companies need to start thinking from the perspective that you will get hacked. And we're saying it all the time, but still we're not acting like it. So that doesn't mean that you don't need to take preventive or detective measures, but we need to be convinced from the fact that there will be a moment that you will be hacked. And you need to be prepared for that. You need to make sure that the impact goes down. And too many organizations now believe it won't happen to them.
I agree. Still believing it.
Well, of course, it has been improved in the past years. But there's still also a lot of companies that don't have basic prevention measures in their environment, like multi-factor authentication. I meet a lot of companies per year who don't have that turned on, or who think that they have it turned on, and then it turns out it isn't turned on. So we've got a real long way to go.
Talking about your interest, going back to that, and this is also coming to the closure of our talk. It's a very stressful job, but what is keeping you so motivated? You mentioned it's a love-hate relation, but is it more of love? Is it more of hate? What is keeping you motivated to do this?
Good question. It depends on the period, maybe of the year or what I'm doing, whether it's more love or whether it's more hate. Generally speaking, it's more love. But I also need to take care of my own mental health. I've run my own company now. I'm delivering more services than just working on incident response. So it needs to be in balance with that.
Do you want to tell us what are the other services that you run?
Yeah, so I help organizations with their security monitoring and detection. So how you detect that someone's in your network and how you respond to that. I help organizations preparing for incidents. I do that based on what I see in the real incident, so really with the practical experience there.
So that's more of training.
Yeah, kind of, but also making sure, for example, that the logging is available in the systems, or discussing with them whether they need a cyber insurance or not. So it's more than just training. It's really having like your emergency kit ready to fix it when it happens, but also indeed training with exercises.
Right.
And then indeed I help organizations who have become a victim of an incident, and I'm also a public speaker, sharing my knowledge with a broader audience, hoping that they can learn from it. Incident response goes with ups and downs also. In sometimes there are no cases for quite some time, and sometimes there are many cases. So you need to balance that a bit. So for me, it's really nice that I now and then do some cases and then help preparing organizations for cyber incidents, making sure the impact goes down.
Lovely. Maybe for our audience or young audience who are willing to start their career off in this, what's your message to them?
Well, I think everyone is saying it, but just do it. It's really a dynamic environment. So cybersecurity in general, it's really a dynamic environment. You can be really of added value. And because it's such a broad domain, there will be multiple topics probably that will get your interest and that you would love to do. And incident response, I think that should be a real good decision to make, whether you want to do it or not. It should fit you. I always say you are an incident responder, so you don't have the role, but you are an incident responder, so you should be able to deal with chaotic situations.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure, start, for example, as a SOC analyst, and thereafter continue to incident response in computer emergency response teams, for example.
Lovely. Okay, well, this calls for our next round, which is the rapid fire round. So it's a fun round, Lisa, and
I'm looking forward to it.
So we're just gonna ask a couple of questions, and whatever comes in your mind first, you can speak that. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question we have is, hackers or internal employees? Who causes more security problems?
Good question. I would say cyber criminals. Yeah.
Strong passwords or password managers? Which one do people still get wrong the most?
Well, they should use password managers. Yeah. The strong passwords are wrong.
Yeah.
They're not strong a lot of the times. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ransomware gangs. Sophisticated criminals or just opportunistic bullies?
Criminals. I actually explained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you could ban one thing from corporate IT forever, what would it be?
Phishing simulations.
They don't work.
Well, I don't think so, or at least we're doing it the wrong way. We should make sure that people learn how to report suspicious activities. And testing whether a person would click a link or not, we already know that answer. We will.
Yeah.
Even I will. So yeah, I think that I would mention that.
Okay, nice. Security awareness training, actually useful or mostly a checkbox exercise?
Well, I think it kind of refers to my previous answer. I'm more a fan of technical measures. You need to train the people, of course, but most organizations I see use this as a checkbox exercise.
Right. Have you ever looked at a company's security and thought, oh no?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of the time. But of course, we should not forget that it's also about the cost. Which cost does which budget does a company have available to make costs for security? What risks do they face? And with most companies, you see their business operations are way more important than security. So yeah, this happens many times. But luckily, the organizations I see are also willing to improve it.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. The most ridiculous security mistake you've ever seen?
Ooh, good question. Well, from employees, mistakes are not ridiculous because it's a mistake. They don't do it on purpose. From criminals, ridiculous mistakes which were beneficial for us and especially for the police is that they put the credentials of their own infrastructure in the code that they use to attack the victim. So yeah, that's really a stupid mistake from the cyber criminals, but I love that mistake because it helps other organizations to not become a victim.
Yeah. Okay. The most surprising way you've seen hackers get into a company?
To be honest with you, most ways they get in for me are it's almost every time the same way they get in. But of course, I'm biased. I don't see all cases. It's all phishing vulnerabilities, passwords that they found from the from the dark web or another breach. The cases that I've seen, I was not really impressed by how they got in, to be honest with you. But I know there are also some really sophisticated attacks, but I didn't work on those cases.
All right. Okay. If hackers had a favorite industry to attack, which one would it be?
Ooh. Currently, I would say small and medium-sized companies, which is in Dutch called MKB.
Yeah.
Not because they have like the most money, but because there's a way to go to make sure that they're really well protected. They can get they can attack easy without investing lots of money or time, and then ask money from the victims, of course. So I would go for that, and then the sector doesn't matter.
No. Yeah. Okay. One thing companies spend too much money on in cybersecurity.
Phishing simulations. Yeah, that's actually maybe also another one. And it's maybe really strange for me to say as I'm a freelancer as well. But what I see as well is that companies hire a lot of freelancers, but don't make efficient use out of them. So they spend, an hourly rate, for example, hire them for 40 hours a week, but do not check them well or guide them in what they need to do, and for them then it's easy money. This is something that frustrates me a lot recently. So I don't think we need to spend less money on cybersecurity professionals, but I do think we need to make sure that we get most value out of the security professionals, and that's a step that we really need to make.
Right. Okay. One word to describe life as an incident responder.
Awesome. Yeah, it still is. Yeah. Even though sometimes I hate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa. I think it was such a wonderful and fun conversation. We learned so much from you, especially the mental health part. People resorting to such a level when they get into situations like these. But also, giving us like a little quick plan of what should a company do immediately after they know that they are hacked, and they can't do everything themselves. So they do need an incident responder or a professional who can come in and help them out. So I think overall it's very interesting. You also mentioned a couple of examples from previous, which were very close to your heart. I think that was very interesting as well. So thank you so much for coming in. I hope viewers will enjoy this conversation, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.